I'm pretty sure in science you may have realized that there are majorly three parts of it: physics, chemistry, and biology. So I'm sure you have seen these three parts so far. Okay. You must have realized something about physics already, that physics mostly relates to motion. Okay. So far, at least you will see much more areas of physics, but so far I'm sure you may have come across the terminology of motion. Okay. The movement of rigid bodies. This is something you might be more familiar with. Now, when it comes to biology, you may have come across a lot of terminologies, which includes the basics behind zoology and botany. This is something you might have come across. Now, when you study about chemistry, this always confuses us that why we are studying this. It is not completely related to motion, neither it is completely related to any form of living thing. Okay. There are certain parts of physics, certain parts of biology, and most importantly, maths support has to have when you go across chemistry. All right. So that is the first thing we need to understand. Like, what is the motive behind studying chemistry? You know. So to make you understand that, let me ask you a simple thing. Suppose, let's imagine I have a glass of water. Okay. So let's say this is a glass of water which I have. And assuming that, you know, that this is at room temperature, and I want to compare water with maybe, you know, a fruit, right? More like an apple. Okay, I'm not a great artist, but I want you to assume this as an apple. Okay. So an apple which might possibly a red color. Just by watching these two, you might get a feeling that, hey, these two are different. Yes or no? You will definitely have that feeling. Hey, these two are definitely different. Now, does it require too much of a science to say that these two are different? I don't think so. Right? Even a common layman, okay, even for that are nani or nana or anybody, all right, whether they are whether they are literate or illiterate, they could be able to point out few things between these two. Now, what are those things which we can just as a layman can tell about these two things? One thing, their property of how they are. Okay, so that means it is about state of matter, how these two are different. Got it? Now, if you take water and if you take apple, I can say water is in liquid state while apple is in solid state. Yes or no? I don't think too much of science is required for this. Not much of an engineering is required for this, correct? So at the same time, we can figure out about the color also, correct?
Yeah.
So when it comes to water, I can definitely say either it is colorless or maybe light blue of how I have given maybe, okay? And apple, if you see on the other hand, if you see the color for the same, right? So we're distinguishing color here. So if you check out color, it might be red color or green color, whatever the apple which I have taken. Other than that, can we identify any other difference better?
Um,
Think as a layman, don't think like I have a student, I am pressurized and I have to give some answer.
the density.
Well, that itself speaks about solid and liquid nature, isn't or not?
Okay.
Solid usually have a high density compared to that of liquid. Okay. And there might be certain problems when it comes to water. It is highly dense. Okay. So you might see, in fact, apple might float, so it might be less dense. So solid and liquid itself gives us a lot of idea about their bonding, their density. Correct. Okay. One thing, their transparency. Right. So transparency, which is also giving us an idea about their colors. So this is in fact completely transparent, and this would be opaque. Okay. This would appear to be opaque. And apart of that, how about the smell? That is odor. So if you check out the odor, definitely water does not have any odor. So I can say it is odorless, while apple may have an aromatic smell, a fragnating smell, right? A fruity smell, right? So these are like the minimum things which you must be able to tell, right? And I guess anybody should be able to tell this. Okay. Going little into technical aspects. Okay. We might say that water may have weak attractive forces. Now I'm going slightly into the subject. Weak attractive forces, considering they are liquid in state. Here they may have strong attractive forces, as it might appear to be solid in nature. Okay. So these are few differences which we can identify. Okay. But as a part of chemistry, right, there are two things we need to do. First, we need to identify the differences. Second thing, the most important question that you have to ask is why. And the entire answer to this lies in chemistry. So chemistry is all about answering this why. Okay. The first why water is in liquid state and why apple is in solid state. So this why is something we need to answer when we study chemistry. All right. Same thing. Why this is colorless? Why this is red in color? What might be the possible reason for it? Why this does not have any odor and this is having a nice aromatic smell? What might be the reason behind? Okay. So this is the why which is coming to our thoughts. These thoughts, when you put it scientifically, okay, not just like, why it is aromatic, just like that, not like, basically we need to have a scientific justification for it. So chemistry is all about answering these whys by scientific proofs and justification. Okay. So chemistry is all about that. Got it? I hope you got an idea why we have to study chemistry.
Yeah.
Right. So while we know why we have to study chemistry, to answer all of these whys, we need to first categorize this chemistry into three parts. Okay. One is the physical aspect of it, known as the physical chemistry. Second is the organic aspect of that, known as the organic chemistry. And third is the inorganic aspect of that. Got it? So a chemistry, to answer all the whys which we have just learned, we need to know these three aspects. What is the physical aspect of it? First, physical aspect as in the sense of touch, the sense of smelling, the sense of seeing, correct? So when you are physically able to use these elements and understand the difference between two substances, two elements, two species, that all falls into the category of physical chemistry. Got it? Let me tell you, for instance, states of matter. That is something which you can see, right? an apple, you can actually see it as a solid substance, correct? So because it is a sense of seeing, sense of feeling, sense of smelling, so we can say states of matter belongs to this category, states of matter. Okay, same way color is something which you are able to see. So color is something which you will be able to understand better if you learn what is atomic structure, how is the structure like, got it? And when the smell is coming, smell does come because some vapors are coming out of it, got it? So through apple there are certain vapors which are continuously coming out of it. Okay, so if vapors are coming, it has to do with not just about state, you have to understand what kind of an reactions that are happening, or what kind of an equilibriums that are establishing. Okay, and equilibriums could be of two kinds. It could be a physical equilibrium or a chemical equilibrium. Right? So what kind of a equilibrium it is establishing? Okay, and we can understand whether this change is happening fast or slow by, you know, uh, certain topics called kinetics. Got it? So these are the backbone of physical chemistry. In physical chemistry, we certainly deal with thermodynamics, kinetics, equilibrium, states of matter, and structure of atom. Thermodynamics deals with the heat, how much heat is being given, at what temperature these two things are. See, the minute you change the temperature of water, it would start becoming either an ice or vapor, correct? So we got to understand what is the temperature, that is what is the thermodynamic aspect behind these substances. So that all fall into the category of physical chemistry. Okay, beta. So this is the brief idea about physical chemistry. What are the chapters that you have to unveil when it comes to physical chemistry? Coming to organic part. Organic is all about carbon and hydrogen chains. Carbon and hydrogen bonds or chains. Okay. How carbon and hydrogen are linked to each other. Amazingly, right from our head to toe. Okay. Right. So 90% of our body, got it, and 95% of the food which we eat, okay, and 90 to 95% of the surroundings which we live, okay, the things we use, the pens we write, got it, the books we use, most of them are made up of organic substances only. They're all made up of organic substances. Got it? So we are surrounded by organics. Got it? The food we eat, it's completely organic. That means it has carbon hydrogen chain only. Okay, whether it's a mango, whether it is a banana, whether it is a rice, roti, dal, all of them has only one thing. What is it? Carbon hydrogen chains. Forms are different. Okay, the soap which we bath, carbon hydrogen chains. Okay, the chappal which we wear, the books which we write, the pen which we write, got it? So all of these are made up of organic compounds. Amazingly, our body is also made up of completely organic substances. So studying the organic compounds, their names, got it, we have around 1.3 million organic compounds. So that's huge number, right? And every name, it's like, you know, if you see still with my name, okay, for example Anil Konkati, there might be 100 more people already there, but when it comes to organic compounds, it has to be a unique name. Got it? So naming, how to name those organic compounds, what reactions they do, got it, what composition they have, okay, and understanding their history, how can we synthesize, You can see most of the things which we are using in our daily life, like right from computers, okay, the wires which we are using, most of them are man-made. So what man-made, what does a scientist do? First, he understands all the names. He realizes what kind of reactions that are happening, how is the composition of hydrogen and carbons, and doing the research, he will finally synthesize a new compound or a new substance. Okay, a pen is a man-made thing, but by understanding the history of carbon and hydrogen, how it is connected to each other, what are their names, right? Learning that, a man could finally be synthesized, able to synthesize a pen or manufacture a pen, got it? Or invent a pen. So this is the next part which we need to study in chemistry, how we can manage to understand organic compounds. Okay. The last part of chemistry is all about inorganic. Okay. It is the information literature of elements and compounds other than organic compounds, other than organic. So it is not that we are only surrounded with everything organic. Okay. Earth, in fact, is made up of almost 85% of the earth is made up of iron only. Got it? And on the surface, you will see abundance amount of aluminium, oxygen, magnesium. Got it? We have, other than that, so many minerals, ores. Okay. Uh, you know, native metals like silver, gold, platinum. So there are so many other elements also, but they may not be in as much composition as that of hydrocarbons. But yes, there are certain elements. If you see the amount of iron, that is huge, right? So that is the next information which we need to study from inorganic. It's all about what is the literature behind these elements, and most importantly, how they are bonding, why they are bonded, how they are bonded, and based upon their bonding, okay, what are the commonalities or common properties which you will observe. What are the common properties which we observe? This is very, very important. Like what we do, whenever we, uh, for instance, okay, so if at all I like vanilla, got it, I will try to see as much as vanilla which is coming in different forms. Maybe when I eat an ice cream, I would try to go for more vanilla ice cream. Got it? Maybe if I go for some shake, I would prefer maybe more vanilla. When I go for a cake, maybe I'll try to have more vanilla in it. Correct? So I'm finding a common thing and trying to relate that with every other aspect here. Correct? May it be a cake, a shake, or a ice cream, and I'm trying to find out a common thing which I like. Correct? Same way about elements. Elements will also have some commonalities. We'll see 10 elements, all of these 10, something is common between them. So identifying that, researching that, that is an important aspect in inorganic. Is this clear, beta? So this
Yeah.
is something which you have to go through chemistry. Got it? So chemistry is all about answering those why by using these three aspects: physical, organic, and inorganic aspect. Okay. Amazingly, when it comes to chemistry, unlike physics, in physics, mechanics is a completely different aspects compared to electricity. Got it? Well, the basics are same. Maybe you are applying Newton's law, but the entire dynamics of mechanics is different compared to that of electricity, magnetism, sound, heat. All these chapters are so different. But in chemistry, it's all interrelated. We can't directly jump on study kinetics. Got it? So we can't directly study kinetics, we can't directly study thermodynamics. It has to go as an integrated flow of chapters. That means to understand any chapter in these three, or any aspect of physical, organic, or inorganic, you must meet a very important friend of chemistry, that is atom. Okay, he is the basis of all. As long as you study about atom, then you will start to able to relate with physical, chemical, physical, organic and inorganic aspect of chemistry. All right. What information you might have in your mind about atom? Let me put it. Tell me whether if it's right or not. The minute we think about atom, a visualization comes to us that okay, an atom will have a bindi like this, correct? Along with that, it would have some circles. Okay, around it there will be some circles like this, right? So this is something which we might imagine the minute we think about an atom. Okay, and what do we know about this? We know that the one bindi which is present here, we call this as nucleus. Okay, and around it, the circles which we are seeing, we call them as orbits. This is the basic terminology. I'm sure you might have come across, correct?
Yeah.
And we also know that long back, I mean, going back to around 400 to 600 years back, during that time, it was only a thought that atom is something which cannot be divided. It is indivisible. Okay. But over the times, as the science evolved, as the scientists understood, what more we can have within the atom, they realized that they would have subatomic particles also. So we know that atom can be further divided into subatomic particles. Is divided into subatomic particles. Got it? So within an atom, we would have subatomic particles, and the most important subatomic particles which you need to know right now, based on your studies, you need to know three things. One is proton, electron, and neutron. Got it? What is the difference between these three? See, let us see. Proton, electron, and neutron. So if you see proton, in short, it is a positively charged species. Electron is a negatively charged species. Neutron has no charge. Got it? And the charge, if at all I write this as E, then the charge of electron will be minus E. E is some value, let's say. Okay, some value of charge. Got it? Like how we use, charge as minus 10 volts or 10 volts. Got it? So if we use that, let's say that E has some value. So amazingly, what it has been found that if proton has E charge, electron has the same charge, but only the opposite sign for it. That's all. Got it? This is one thing that has been found. And scientists have also identified that proton's mass, and in fact the mass of atom itself is so small, in that also proton's mass is found to be approximately 1.66 into 10 raised to power of minus 24 grams. That's very, very less as compared to that of electron, which is in fact electron is even worse, that is minus 31 kgs, or if you write in terms of grams, it is 10 raised to power of minus 28 grams. Now when it comes to neutron, it is found to be around 1.67 into 10 raised to power of minus 24 grams. You might wonder, whether we should remember this. Got it? Over the time, you will anyway get to remember this numbers, but more importantly, these numbers would be given to you during the examination also, and you will be using this number a lot of times. The essence is important here. The essence here is the mass of proton, mp as in mass of proton, is almost same as mass of neutron. Just a small point of difference. Okay, but if you see this, their mass is very, very, very large as compared to that of mass of electron. In fact, if you find the mass of electron, this is 1 by 1837 times that of mass of proton. This is what has been identified, right? So that's so small. So mass of electron is very, very, very small, right? Almost like if I am an electron, then the earth is the proton. So imagine that much difference in the mass, right? So now these are the minimum things which we need to know about the subatomic particles. Okay. Over the time when you come to 11th standard, you will realize how this mass has been even calculated. But as of now, depending upon our restriction of what standard we are on, we'll take some things as assume. Let us say this is a given information to us. Okay. And where do this, protons, electrons, where do they lie exactly? See now. In the nucleus, when it comes to nucleus, within the nucleus, I will have protons and neutrons. Okay. And in the orbits, we will have electrons. Electrons will be present here. Correct? So this is the basic idea behind an atom. So atom will have subatomic particles, protons, neutrons, and electrons. Protons and neutrons would be present in the nucleus, while electrons would be present on the orbits. Okay. And the basic idea about atom is that electrons keep moving in circular orbits across the nucleus and maintains electrical neutrality, which means it is electrically neutral. So overall atom is always neutral in state. If you have number of protons and number of electrons, if you check it out, okay. So one thing what we'll see in a neutral atom, number of protons, okay, this is number of protons shall be same as number of electrons because the charge is same. Proton and electron has same amount of charge. So we can say if charge is same and atom is neutral, that is only possible then when both protons and number of electrons are same. So we can say that number of protons is same as number of electrons. Got it? Now, depending upon the number of protons, right, we will have different type of atoms. Okay. So this is the basic idea about atoms. Now we'll see what are the types of atoms. Got it? Every different type of atom is what we call it as an element. Have you understood the definition of what is an element? Element is nothing but a type of an atom. Okay. How does one element differ from the other element? An element differs from the other element only by their number of protons. Got it? If the proton numbers are different, definitely that element will have different properties compared to the other element. Okay. Number of protons decides the type of atom, and differentiates and differentiates one element with another. One element with another element. Okay, beta? Okay. So this number of protons present in an atom, from now onwards we will designate that as Z. Okay, and the Z is known as atomic number. This is known as atomic number. Okay, similarly, total number of protons and neutrons, total number of protons and neutrons included, we will call that as A, which is mass number. Why this terminology mass number? See, what we have identified that the mass of proton and mass of neutron is almost same. Is almost same. Okay. Hence, every proton and neutron is designated as nucleon, because they are present in the nucleus. They are called as nucleons. Okay, so in short, what we learned that mass number A is nothing but total number of nucleons, and nucleons is nothing but number of protons plus number of neutrons. Is this terminology clear, beta? What is A and what is Z?
Yeah.
Next thing you got to know is notation of an element. When it comes to an element, how do we notate? How do we, show, what kind of an element? How two different, how elements are different from each other? Suppose there is an element X, and there is an element Y. So differentiate that X is different from Y. First, we need to show the Z value, right? So what is their Z value? Which means atomic number. Next, we need to showcase their mass number, which is A. Got it? So one thing we will get, if Z is same, okay, if Z is equal to, if Z value of X and Y are same, then they are same element with difference in mass number maybe. Otherwise, they are same. Okay. For example, if it is hydrogen is an element. Hydrogen is an element. That means it is a type of an atom. Okay. So hydrogen is an element, okay, with difference in some mass number. Suppose if you have hydrogen, if the number is atomic number is 1, then if I put one more hydrogen with atomic number 1, these two may be exactly same atoms, but if they have a difference in their atomic number, suppose it is 1 and 2 here, got it? They still are the same atoms, but these type of atoms are called isotopes of each other. They are called isotopes of each other. Got it? Why? Because mass number is same, sorry, atomic number is same, atomic number is same, but mass number differs. Okay, atomic number is same, but mass numbers differs. Then these are called, isotopes of each other. These are called isotopes. Okay, so in fact these two are isotopes, and these isotopes, they are same elements, by the way. Okay, don't think that they are different elements. Elements is all about atomic number. If the atomic number are same, they are same elements, but their mass number is different, so that's why they are called isotopes. And the isotope name for this one is protium, and this one is deuterium. Okay, like that, if at all there is hydrogen 3 1, okay, this is called tritium. Now, if you understood what are isotopes?
Yeah.
Isotopes are the same elements which have different mass number. Okay. Now, if you see that here, number of protons and number of neutrons. If you check out here in both the cases, here there is only one proton, one proton, one proton. But when it comes to neutron, 0, 1, and 2. Got it? And if you see n plus p, right? So which is number of protons plus number of neutrons. If you observe, it is the sum of these two. It is 1, 2, and 3. So you can see mass number is different. This is your mass number A. This is atomic number Z. Is that right, beta? Have you understood? So first thing, you should understand the notation. Next thing, you need to understand the parameters, what is A and what is Z. Is that clear? Right? Now suppose if you have two different elements, the minute I say two different elements, that means definitely they have a difference in Z value. For example, if I take hydrogen and helium, the Z value of hydrogen is 1, helium it is 2. So you can see Z is different, so definitely they are different elements. Okay, its mass number may be 1 and this may be 4, let's say. It may be 1, 2, 3, 4, anything. Okay, but let's say it is given. So these two are definitely two different elements. Got it? Different elements because they have different Z value, atomic number value. Okay, beta. So like that, how many different elements we have? So amazingly, till date in the modern science, we were able to find out up to 117 elements. Got it? Up to 90. Okay. So most of these elements up to 90, 92 in fact, up to uranium, these were all found naturally, okay, in and around the earth. But anything above 92, atomic number 92, that was all usually man-made. Got it? So by various experiments, we were able to identify and prepare new elements. Got it? So our agenda now should be, first what we are doing, we are getting to know what is an atom, correct? Because we have not got into physical, organic or inorganic aspect yet. What did I say? First, we need to understand atom better. then we will be able to understand rest of the chemistry part. Is that clear, beta?
Yeah.
Right? So if you see these two elements like that, we can have various elements. Okay. Right? So first what we'll do, from z is equal to 1 to z is equal to 20, we'll try to figure out what are all those elements. Okay. So let me write down that: hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, then we have sodium, potassium, sodium, magnesium, aluminium. Okay, I'll write it from here: sodium, magnesium, aluminium. I forgot carbon. Then we have silicon, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine, then haven't write neon here, so here neon and argon, then potassium, calcium. Okay, this is the total list of elements from 1 to 20. Let me write the atomic number for that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 10. Then here onwards 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. These are the first 20 elements. Got it? Till 10th standard, you must be very, very, very comfortable in memorizing 1 to 20, their properties, their number of electrons, and so on. This is something which you have to practice over time. Okay. Now, what are the other things we must know? Just an element is not enough. You need to know the information and what is I said, commonality of these elements. What is the most common factor of these elements? That is something we must know. Okay. For that, you have to come across two important terms. One is valence electrons. Valence electrons. Okay. And second one is valency. First, let us understand what is valence electrons. It is nothing but number of electrons present in outermost orbit of an atom. Okay. So it is all about number of electrons present in the outermost orbit of an atom. Okay. So which means we need to understand the pattern of electrons as well. Okay. So suppose if at all I just recall back the structure of atom, how it is. Correct. So when it comes to structure of atom, we have found out that it would have, various orbits here. So let's say this is the first orbit, and let's say this is the second orbit. Let's say this is the third orbit. Let's say this is the fourth orbit. Like this. Okay. So every orbit is designated with a number, and first starting with 1, n is equal to 1, n is equal to 2, n is equal to 3, and n is equal to 4. Right? What amazingly it has been found that every orbit has a capacity. Got it? So this is important, that every orbit has a maximum capacity to store electrons. Got it? Now let us see what is the capacity every orbit can store. Suppose if you check out n is equal to 1, the maximum electrons that it can store is only 2. So I'm writing it as 2 electrons. Okay. So if n is equal to 2, the maximum number of electrons that it can store is 8 electrons. N is equal to 3, maximum electrons that it can store is 18 electrons. N is equal to 4, maximum electrons it can store is 32 electrons. Okay, you can see there is a pattern of electrons here. The pattern is 2n square, where n is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So if it is first orbit, what is the maximum number you are getting? 2. Second orbit, you can see 8. Third orbit, you can see 18. 2n square, right? Itu so far clear, beta?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So first thing what we learned is about atoms. Now I'm coming to a very important definition called as valence electrons. Okay. So how many electrons we can maximum have is what something which we are learning. And what it has been found out that, okay, now check this. Suppose if this is the first orbit, if this is the first orbit, got it? And then this is the second orbit. And then this is the third orbit. Now I'm writing those orbits in terms of compartments. So this is n is equal to 1, n is equal to 2, n is equal to 3, and so on. Ritu,
Yeah.
you listening?
Yeah.
Okay. So if n is equal to 1, you can see maximum I have 2 electrons. This is the maximum I can have. N is equal to 2, I can have 8 electrons. Got it? After 8, that means after you fill 2 electrons, you will go to second. From 2, then you'll go to third orbit. Again, you'll fill only 8, not all 18. Got it? Why it happens, we will slowly understand that as we study more into detail of atomic structure. But as of now, we'll just understand the pattern. Got it? After 8 is done, again it will go to next. N is equal to 4. Okay? Here it will fill completely 18. Got it? Got it? And comes back here. Got it? After filling this 8, sorry, after filling this 8, again it will come back. This pattern is always followed. Suppose if you have the next orbit, okay, n is equal to 5, it will fill 8 again. After filling this, it will come this way. Okay, so let me show you the path here once again. So this is the path 1. After 1, it will go to 2. Then this is path 3. Got it? 1, 2, 3. Then comes path 4. Okay. Then comes path 5. Then comes path 6. This is the path electron would follow. This path is very important. Okay. So that means if you have 10 electrons, suppose if you have 10 electrons, what do? Okay, see, 1 plus 1, 2 electrons done here. Okay, third electron, fourth electron, fifth, sixth. How many maximum I can put? I can put maximum up to 8. So all 8 I'll put here. So 2 plus 8, 10. So after 2, n is equal to 2 is done, n is equal to 3, n is equal to 5, n is equal to 4. This will all be empty only. They don't have any electrons. So 10 electrons will be here. Okay. So if it is 15 electrons, where do we 15 electrons means which orbit it will be? You will have 2 first, 8 here, 10 is done, next 5. So it will be in the third orbit. I think the idea is clear now. Correct?
Yeah.
So given any element number, got it? You must be able to tell me where does it appear. I mean, all the electrons would be in which particular orbit. Got it? Now,
Yeah.
let me write down that. Suppose if you have sodium, for instance, sodium will have 11 atoms, 11 electrons. So first orbit, first orbit, first or first orbit, which is n is equal to 1, will have how many electrons? It will have 2 electrons. Got it? Then second orbit n is equal to 2, that can maximum have 8 electrons. So total how many electrons are done? 10 electrons are done.
Yeah.
So now the next electron will go to the third orbit, n is equal to 3, so it will have 1 electron here. Got it? Yeah. So we write the configuration for sodium as, you know, this is the configuration which we will write. So sodium 11 will have 2, 8, 1. I hope you understood. When we write
Yeah.
2, 8, 1, which means 2 means 2 electrons in the first orbit, 8 electrons in the second orbit, and 1 means 1 electron in the third orbit. Similarly, if I write chlorine, chlorine is 17. So then you will write it as 2, 8, and 7. Got this? Yeah. Now, so this last number which you are finding out, these are the electrons present in the last shell, right? These are the electrons present in the last shell of their respective elements, correct?
Yeah.
And that number of electrons is what we call it as valence electrons. This is called valence electrons. Here, this 7 is called valence electrons. So I hope you understood the fundamental here, correct?
Yeah.
So given any atom with its atomic number, you must be able to figure out what would be its valence electrons. Okay. Suppose let me write down that for calcium. Calcium is 20. Okay. First you will definitely fill 2, then 8, then 8. Up to this part, how much it is done?
18.
18 is done. So then where
Yeah.
we should go? We should go to fourth orbit. I told you the pattern. See 1, 2, 3. Then where do we need to go? After this 3 is done and is done, then we'll go to fourth orbit. Correct?
Yeah.
So 1 to 2 is done. 2 to n is equal to 2 to 3 is done. Then 3 to 4 you will go. So 3 to 4 you will fill 8 electrons, but we have only 2 electrons left. So those 2 electrons I will put it in the fourth orbit. So this last electrons, what do we call them?
Valence electrons.
Valence electrons. Is that clear? So given any element, this is the one thing you must be able to figure out. What is the valence electrons? How many number of valence electrons you have? Clear? Next important aspect we need to learn is what is valency. Okay. This is very important. Valency. Valency is nothing but combining capacity or ability of an element. Okay, that means when it is combining with other atom, how many number of electrons does it involve? Okay, so in short, number of electrons involved in bonding. How many number of electrons it is involving in bonding? Okay, for example, if you have hydrogen, H2 for instance, hydrogen and hydrogen. So this hydrogen is involving 1 electron, this hydrogen is involving 1 electron. Got it? So which means hydrogen in generally always involves 1 electron only. It does not involve more than 1. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Got it? So we can say that the valency of hydrogen is 1. Okay, so valency of hydrogen is 1. But what about the valency of helium? Suppose if you have helium 2, what will be the valency of helium? Tell me beta, what will be the valency of helium?
Helium will not have a valency because it is already
Perfect.
balanced.
That means helium does not
Yeah,
participate in bonding only. Got it?
yeah,
So it does not have any combining capacity. So we say its valency is 0.
okay.
Right? So the one which does not combine at all, we say its valency is 0. Okay. Rest all elements which will combine, we will say that is their respective valencies. Okay. There are certain
Yeah,
elements which will show multiple valencies also. For example, let us take about sulfur. Sulfur is S60. Correct? I've written here is that sulfur S16. Yeah. So sulfur, if you check out, if I write the electronic configuration, first 2 electrons, 8 electrons, 8 electrons. Got it? Or all this is 18 electrons it is happening. So 18 can't be possible. So what does that mean? 6.
wait,
2, 8, 6. That should be
hmm,
his valency. Yeah,
yeah,
that should be his configuration. If I ask you what are number of valence electrons, what do you say?
6.
6. Okay. Now, sulfur can combine with 2 electrons. It can combine with 4 electrons. It can combine with 6 electrons also, depending upon the type of molecule. For example, if you do H2S molecule, here sulfur is combining only 2 electrons with hydrogen. Okay. If you take SO2, sulfur is combining with oxygen by involving 4 electrons. If you see SO3, sulfur is combining with oxygen by involving 6 electrons. So if you ask me, what is the valency of sulfur here? 6. What is the valency of sulfur here? 4. What is the valency of sulfur here? 2. Are you getting that? Yeah.
Yeah,
So there are certain elements which might give multiple valencies also. Okay. So 1 to 20, we must be able to figure out what are the valencies, common valencies, which elements will have multiple valencies. Are you getting it?
yeah,
Right? So this is one thing we are expected to understand by every element. So let me write down that as a table. So first element, what is the element? Okay. Then what is their configuration? The second thing we need to know is configuration. Third thing, valence electrons. How many valence electrons does it have? Fourth thing, what is the valency? Got it? I hope you understood this table, what we are supposed to do.
yeah,
Okay. And obviously, based on the serial number, that will be nothing but atomic number, Z. Okay. So if I go from 1 to 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? If you see all these elements, let us figure out first one. First element is hydrogen, H1. Correct. Configuration is 1. Number of valence electrons are 1. Valence is also 1. Okay. So like that, let me write down all the elements here. Helium 2, lithium 3, beryllium 4, boron 5, carbon. I'm not writing again because I hope you understand that.
yeah, yeah,
Nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, neon, sodium, magnesium, aluminum, silicon, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine, argon, potassium, and calcium. These are the total elements. Okay. Now, if you see these elements, and let us write the configuration. Correct. So this is 2, valence electrons are 2 and valence is 0. Now what about lithium beta? Lithium, you know that configuration is 2 and 1, correct? Because there are 3 electrons to be accommodated. First 2 I'll accommodate in 1. The next one I can only accommodate in the second orbit.
Yeah.
And valence electrons 1. And lithium will involve only 1 electron in bonding.
Yeah.
Beryllium 2, 2, 2 and 2. Okay. Boron 2, 3.
3.
And valence electrons 3. It will also involve all 3 electrons. Carbon 2, 4. Valence electrons 4. It will also involve all 4 electrons. Nitrogen 2, 5. 4. Sorry, 5. And it will also involve all 5 electrons. Oxygen 2, 6. 6. But it involves only 2 electrons now. Very important. From oxygen onwards, it is changing. You see? So oxygen does not involve more than 2 electrons in it. Got it? Why it does like that is our next discussion. Okay. First, you got to understand what are their valences and valence electrons. Okay, beta.
Okay.
Fluorine 2, 7. And valence electrons 7. Valence is only 1. Neon 2, 8. 8 electrons 0. Neon also does not participate in any reactions.
Yeah.
Sodium 2, 8, 1. 1 and 1. This pattern repeats 2, 8, 2, 2 and 2. 2, 8, 3, 3 and 3. 2, 8, 4, 4 and 4. 2, 8, 5, 5 and 3 and 5. From here, multiple valency starts. Okay. So, phosphorus is showing multiple valencies. Okay. So does sulfur also. 2, 8, 6, 6, 2, 4, 6. Okay. Chlorine.
Yeah.
2, 8, 7. Okay. And 7. It will also show 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. And most common is 1. Here the most common is 6. The most common is 5. Okay. Next, argon 2, 8, 8. Right? 8 and 0.
Yeah.
2, 8, 8 and 1. 1 and 1. And 2, 8, 8 and 2. 2 and 2. So these are the valence electrons and valences. Okay. So for these 20 elements, you have to practice and understand what are the valences, what are the valence electrons. Okay. Okay. Any day, any time of chemistry, you must remember these ideas. Okay. What should be the valencies? What should be the valence electrons of these first 20 elements? Okay. What are the important takeouts from here? One thing, you should know all the elements from 1 to 20. Correct? What are 1 to 20 elements? You have to mug up, you have to keep writing and practicing that. Second thing, you must learn how to put the configuration. Okay. Third thing, you must learn how to write the valence electrons and valences. Got it, beta?
Yeah.
Okay. Now let me explain you. This is where I'll end the session. So let me explain you. For example, when we take sodium and when I take chlorine, got it? What we have seen, it is 2, 8, 1. And this is 2, 8, 7. Correct? Now,
Yeah.
when it comes to these different elements which we are seeing here, helium, for instance, okay, helium, then we had neon, then we had argon, correct?
Yeah.
We are trying to see something common in them, that either their first orbit has only 2 electrons, or their every next orbit is having maximum 8 electrons. All right, it is not exceeding 8. So one thing we can point out here, these are called inert gases because they are not participating in any kind of bonding. Okay, and
Yeah.
they possess valence electrons of either 2 if n is equal to 1, or 8 in n greater than 2, n greater than or equal to 2. Correct. So if n is equal to 2, n is equal to 3, 4, 5, the valence electrons will always be 8 only. Got it? That is the most commonality which has found in inert gases. Okay. See, what does that mean? See, it's very simple, beta. Suppose if I say, I'm standing here, and I'm standing here, got it? And I want 4 of my friends to be at the equidistance from me. Got it? 4 of my friends and equidistance from me, and I don't want my friends to fight together. So they have to be as far away from each other as possible. What is the best possible alignment which I can make? I can make it as north, south, east, west.
Yeah.
Yes or no? This is the best alignment. They are equidistance from me, and second, they will have less amount of interaction because the distance between them is equal as well as far. Correct? Right. So don't think like, okay, sir, these two are very far away from each other. Agreed. Totally agreed. But I'm saying at one instance, this distance is same, this distance is same, this distance is same, and this distance is same. Correct? Right. So this is one thing. Suppose if at all I have 2 friends only, how do I put them? I'll put one friend here and one friend here, north and south. Correct? This is putting out 2 friends. Okay. First orbit has maximum how much capacity? Only 2 electrons. So what is the best possible alignment of electrons? One, if this is nucleus, then one electron will be here, the other electron will be here always.
Okay.
Is that point clear, beta?
Yeah.
Now next second orbit onwards, what we are seeing, if this is me, have 8 maximum friends I have to align. Correct. So what is the first thing I will do? First thing what I'll do, okay, I will take this point to this point and make a line. And same way from this point to this point, I'll make one more line. I'll take one more line, put it at this point. Correct? And I take one more line and I put it at this point. Correct? This is like the most common point and equidistance from me.
Yeah.
Now I'll assign all my friends. Okay, I'll inform all my friends to be here. Got it? So what it has been found that the symmetry of electrons will be best when it is having only 2 electrons or it has 8 electrons. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Which is what all the inert gases has. Okay.
Yeah.
If you see helium has only 2 electrons. Then neon, argon, krypton, xenon. All of these have 8 electrons in their valence shell. Okay. Yeah. Because the electronic repulsions are these are all the ones which are put down here. These are all electrons. Okay. So since the electronic repulsions are minimum, they are very, very stable. Got it? And this
Yeah.
stability is what we call it as octet configuration. Is this clear, beta?
Yeah.
So octet configuration brings lot of stability. If they are very stable, they are least reactive. That's why they are least reactive. Got it? And since they are least reactive, their valency becomes 0. Have you understood that, beta?
Yeah.
Okay. Which means, suppose, okay, if at all I ask you, uh, what is the, throughout the 24 hours of a day which you have, what is the time where you are most stable?
In the morning.
Stable, not active.
At night.
Night,
Stable.
exactly.
At
Stable
night.
means, yeah, stable means when you are using your least energy. Correct?
Mm. Okay.
Stability always relates to least energy. Okay.
Okay.
Always figure out that way. If something has more energy, that means it is less stable. Okay.
Okay.
Kian has too much of energy. That's why he's less stable. He'll keep hopping, going here and there always. Got it? Okay. So stability is always related to less energy. Okay. So throughout our entire 24 hours of the day and night, we are most stable when we are sleeping because our least amount of energy is being utilized by our organs. Correct? So like that, every element, suppose given a chance, to us, what is the best thing we want to do? We want to utilize more energy or less energy?
Yes, sir.
Less energy. That means we want to be more stable. Correct? And that's the human behavior. And unfortunately, it is the behavior of every element. Every element is trying to reach to the stable state. Got it? Now check about this sodium. Sodium has, right, 281 configuration. Okay.
Yeah.
Now imagine if this sodium is somehow been able to remove out that one electron. So what do I get?
280.
280.
Yeah.
Forget about that 0. That means it has become this configuration or no?
Yeah.
So that means it has attained stability or no?
Yes.
So what does the sodium will like to do? Sodium is
Lose the
always
one.
ready to lose electron, correct?
Yeah.
Or it has one more way. It can achieve the same type of thing by one more way. Okay. Either to get a configuration of 288.
Yeah.
Okay. Correct. This is
Yeah.
losing one electron. This is the path. While this is a path of gaining 7 electrons, which is a more tedious path.
Losing the one.
Tedious path. Tedious means very laborious path.
The 7.
Obviously, gaining 7 electrons. Got it?
Yeah.
Are you getting it? See what?
Yeah.
Suppose if you overheat or overeat, you will be more stable, or if you eat normal, minimal, you'll be more stable.
If you, Baba, I cannot hear you. Once.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, my question is,
Yeah.
if you eat optimal amount, or if you overeat, in which case you'll be more stable.
If we eat optimal amount.
Correct, right?
Yeah.
So if sodium eats 7 electrons, it might become stable. That means उसको शायद नींद आएगा, बट वो बहुत ज्यादा खा गया ना.
Yeah.
बट अगर वो एक ही खाता है, एक लूज कर देता है, सब चलो, and it is becoming stable. Correct? So that is a much easier task. Understood? So which task does it chooses?
Losing the one electron.
Yes, losing the one electron. So that is a best path for sodium. So it will always choose this path and not this path. Correct? Now, same way when it comes to chlorine, correct? It also
Yeah.
has two paths, correct? Now,
Hmm.
chlorine also has two paths. Here, either it can gain one electron and becomes 288, or to lose 7 electrons and become 280. So this is losing 7 electrons or gaining 1 electron, which is an easier path for it now.
Gaining one electron.
Gaining 1 electron, correct. So this one is a wrong path for sodium, correct.
Hmm.
So sodium is always ready to lose electron, and if it loses electrons, that means number of protons are more than electrons now.
Yeah.
So that means it will get a positive charge. So from an atom, sodium from an atom, it tries to be an ion. That's why in nature you do not find sodium, you will find sodium ions.
Okay.
Same way, if you check out chlorine, instead of losing 7 electrons, it would gain 1 electron. So you would see it would try to become an ion by becoming Cl minus.
Yeah.
Got this? So sodium would always exist as Na plus, while chlorine will exist as Cl minus in nature. Okay. So the best example for that is common salt NaCl.
Okay.
Have you understood that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is where you will start to learn the bonding. Why
Okay.
elements are bonding? Why they are not simply being elements? Why they are always existing as compounds and molecules? I hope now you got an idea. Every element, if they are already inert, they do not react. But if they are not inert, they have a tendency to become either a cation, or a positive ion or a negative ion, or it will bond somewhere so that it can come close to inert gases.
Hmm.
Correct? So that is the reason why you will have existence of compounds, existence of molecules.
Okay.
Is this clear now? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So now your task would be about